And so in this conversation, we hope to gain your perspective on market developments, technological shifts, and the role of international collaboration in shaping the sector's future. Our first question is, in the first 4 months of 2024, German grid operators received over 530 grid connection applications for storage projectors, totally 204 gigawatts, far exceeding the country's long-term storage targets. So does this explosive growth signal an overheated market? And in your view, how should policymakers intervene to ensure high quality development rather than uncontrolled expansion?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's a very good question because it's very pointing on a very latent development in Germany. So actually, the German press found a new expression for that. They talked about a battery tsunami. Actually, I think this very high number of applications, just a few of them will really become projects, because this is probably it is fostered by a change in regulation, and it's the end of a fee exemption next year, and probably that's the reason why many people apply now for these grid connections. So maybe it's not that big as it sounds today. But let me come back to your last question. How should policymakers intervene? So actually, but that's my opinion, I would say no policy intervention, please. Because if you look at the development in the storage sector, for example, the development of home storages in Germany, very successful story. And that's behind the meter. There's no regulation, and that's why it's working. Every time you have policy intervening in this very over-regulated market, it's getting difficult. So I really believe, for example, if we think that all these applications become real projects, and then we have a lot of, despite the technical problems of a grid connection, then we have a lot of storages connected to the grid. So that's not a problem, it's part of the solution, because energy storages are able to, let's say, take energy from the system, from the grid, if it's too much, and they can give it back at a later time. So that's exactly what we need. I mean, this discussion is very strange, because so the people providing these grid connections, so somehow they do not completely understand the advantages of a storage. So I believe it's not a problem, it's a solution. And the next, maybe one thought more, at a certain time, we might have enough of these storages providing flexibility to the grid. And if we have that, then the business model for these storages, it will change. And probably they are not that economic viable as the first ones. So that means, okay, but the market will do this regulation. So at a certain point, it's saturation of flexibility. We have enough. I think it's far from now, but it might happen, but that's okay. I mean, we don't need regulation in this context, because the market will do it itself. That's what I believe, at least.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the answer and for sharing your insights on market dynamics and your confidence in the market itself.
Probably I'm a little bit too optimistic, but sorry.
And looking ahead, I like to turn to the question of business models and where real lasting value might emerge in the years to come. Maybe conventional business models may face margin compression and rising homogeneity over the next 3 to 5 years, which storage applications or hybrid business models. And do you see holding true structural potential, and which types of investment strategies are best positioned to emerge as winners once the current market froth clears?
Yeah. I think to answer this question, it's necessary to have kind of a view, of a vision of the future energy system. So the future energy system will be more decentralized, more distributed. There will be smaller structures, more local structures, and sector coupling, so that from electricity to other sectors like thermal, heat and cold, or the mobility sector. All these things will happen, and that's following the characteristics of renewable energies, like wind or PV, for example. And that leads to, let's say, probably to smaller investments. Um, I know that investors, they love big investments, they love investment in big infrastructure, so that's very nice for them. But the future will not point in this direction. It will more go into smaller units. And I know that this is kind of difficult, but on the other hand, if you have a system consisting of these smaller local renewable units, I mean, supply and storage, so that is more stable. The overall system is more stable because it consists of these smaller parts. And we see these developments in the home storage I mentioned already, but also in the combination energy storage, renewables, energy storage, and industrial demand. So many small and medium enterprises are very much interested in these local solutions. And there's another thing I heard lately, that the thoughts about the new energy system in Ukraine is very much in this direction, because they know exactly what it means to have a centralized system, which is very vulnerable. And if you have a decentralized system, it's very difficult to really hurt the energy system as a whole. You can only find small pieces. So I think this stability aspect for a decentralized renewable system is very interesting. And coming back to your questions, this view on this new energy system, this defines somehow the future role of energy storage applications.
Thank you so much. That's a very interesting perspective on future opportunities and potential investment approaches.
Yeah.
And on the technical side, I like to explore how these developments may influence the evolving role of storage within the power system. Like with the rapid growth of large-scale battery storage and melting grid connection challenges in Germany, do you believe the role of storage should evolve from short duration frequency support towards a more systemic grid embedded function? Or from a technical perspective, how do you envision the architecture of future BESS shifting from isolated assets to fully integrated grid components?
Yeah, exactly as you said. I think it will go to more, let's say, integrated applications for storage. So the business cases will change, and that's interesting. In the battery industry, already today they have, let's say, changing business cases over the next 20-25 years, and they start with these with the grid services, and they come more to, let's say, arbitrage. And also in this perspectives for the batteries in the system, it's important to have a vision on this future system. And we will have at certain times in the future, due to the renewable sources, we will have far too much energy in the system at very low cost. And now the question is, what can we do with it? And of course, storage is the solution. However, at that point, it is important to see that we need this flexibility. Flexibility means we have to make a match between the supply and the demand in time. And that's what storage can do. The problem, or not the problem, but the important is to keep in mind that the final energy demand, what we really need, is 25% electricity. And that's therefore batteries are a very good solution, beside pumped hydro and others. But 50%, over 50% in Germany is thermal. That means heating and cooling. So in this context, it's getting very interesting to have a shift from electricity to heat, for example. In Germany, we have a lot of heating demand in buildings and in industrial processes. So that means this power to heat approach becomes important because storing the heat is much less expensive than storing electricity, factor of 100. So that is really a good reason why you should convert the electricity into heat and store the heat. And these thermal storages, they also provide flexibility to the system. So that is one point. And the other point, in Germany, we love hydrogen. Hydrogen is very popular, at least in politics. And also hydrogen is a very interesting way of storing energy if you have too much and if it is at very low cost. Important in this context is that you look for specific applications very suitable for hydrogen. So hydrogen, of course, you can heat with hydrogen, but hydrogen is expensive. So that's not a good solution for the heating because thermal storages are far less expensive. So look for application where hydrogen is unique. And that is, for example, aviation, things like that. So the idea is really to convert this oversupply of electricity at certain times into what you need at the end, the energy form you need. So that's also a kind of vision of the future system, I think.
I think the answers are very clear. Thank you so much for the valuable insights. And
Thank you.
finally, let's turn to the role of international players,
Yeah.
particularly from China in this transformation. Like, how do you view the role of Chinese manufacturers, EPCs, or capitals in shaping the evolution of Germany's storage sector?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I mean, of course, China is really the big player now.
Yeah.
But after all, it's a global development. I mean, Germany has a very fast-growing storage market at the moment. That's very interesting, and it's a small country, but you can see in Germany maybe some developments which will happen in other countries a few years later. In this context, in the batteries and the share of electricity is I think 65% now on renewables. That's very good. But we have other countries as well. I mean, Denmark is very good in the integration of renewables. Norway is very good in the number of electric vehicles, and Austria, for example, is very interesting in distributed small-scale renewable systems. And so every country has a speciality. I think I'm coming from research, R&D, science. So in this field, collaboration is very common, and we work together for best results. And I would like to transfer this to the business world, and especially when it comes to the energy transition. So that's really, it's a global task. And it is so big that not one country or one continent can do it on its own. So I think collaboration is very, very important, is key to the energy transition in the end.
Thank you so much, Dr. Andreas. And on behalf of our audience, we want to thank you again for your valuable insights. And thank you
Thank you
for
very
your
much.
time. We are looking forward to seeing you in the following interviews.
Thank you very much.